Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Wings Podcast. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri. On today's show, we will meet Vitunjai Mohit, a non resident Indian currently living in Toronto, Canada. Jai, as he is popularly known, was born in Thailand, lived and grew up in 6 countries, and has traveled across many more. After graduating high school in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Jai attended Ryerson University in Toronto, Canada, where he studied sports media at the RTA School of Media. He has been living in Canada for the past 4 years and loves every bit of it, both the highs and the lows, as he says. Welcome, Jai, to this episode of Wings Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Jay, I read out your introduction as somebody who was born in Thailand and lived and grew up in 6 different countries and having traveled across many more. Intellectually, one does understand what does it mean to be, traveling across multiple countries in one's formative years. And it would be interesting to hear from you a first-hand experience of how childhood gets shaped and how does one's teen years or early adulthood gets shaped when you're transitioning across various geographies and cultures for various reasons which is beyond one's control.
Yeah, and before I get into the answer, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It's interesting living in all these different countries, in whether it's in Southeast Asia or Australia and now in Canada. A lot of my upbringing is shaped based by the experiences I was able to experience, and by the cultures of the societies that I was living in at the time. I've just been back here in Malaysia. I'm visiting my family after a year and a half living in Canada. And like I come back, I meet my friends, I meet my family, and to them it's like almost like I've become very Canadianized in a sense. And that's not to say that I've lost a sense of who I am and the ideals and values I grew up on, but it's, you're naturally integrating into a new society, into a new community. And so you pick up tendencies, whether that's speech, whether that's habits such as your eating pattern. In Canada, people eat at around 5 p.m., 6 p.m. In Asia, that's not a normal thing. Everyone eats very later in the evening, around 7:30 or 8 p.m. So even little things like these change over time. But a big part of you remains, especially to your integral growing up years, in high school. So a lot of my values and ideals are shaped in Asian culture, though that might differ from nation to nation, as you said, the Philippines, Thailand, India. I like to think that most of those experiences have some sort of bridging and similar or are similar in a capacity. And so I would say that most of my experiences living through Asia have shaped me through going to international schools, diving into the local culture of where I'm currently living in. But yeah, I would say the experiences and the people you meet, those help shape your ideas, your values, and your outlook on life.
I, though was born in Ahmedabad in Gujarat, I was raised and I grew up my early childhood and adulthood in Mumbai city. So I went to 2 schools in my life, one till my 4th grade and one till the further education. And then I did my high school and college education there itself. So till I was about 18 years old, I was in the same city, living in the same atmosphere, living in the same set of friends and neighborhood. So I kind of relate to what that means. It has brought in a sense of anchoring for me as not only belonging to a place which I know, though I live in Pune now, I think even now I feel I belong to Mumbai city. But there is also a strong need to be anchored at one place is how I have lived my early life. Now, how has it been for you? I mean, Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines. Uh, what sort of connects do you still carry with you of those places in terms of specific memories?
Yeah, I think you hit on a really good point. I think if you ask many people who have grown up in my situation, the one thing we lack is that anchoring, right? Where when someone asks us, what do you call home or where is home for you? It's almost like our brain has a massive pause point because we're trying to figure that out ourselves as we, continue to grow. But I would say that, like if I had to say that there was an anchoring point, it's wherever my family at the time currently resides. So for a great example is, before my family came to Malaysia, that anchor or that so-called home for me and my family was the Philippines. We had been there in terms of years of stay. Amongst all the other countries we'd moved around to, the Philippines was the longest at the time. And so when we had moved to Malaysia, it was, a little bit traumatic for me and my brother. We really liked Manila. We really liked living there. So when we came to Malaysia, we didn't really want to be here. But, taking advice from what my mom has said, even now when I went to Canada, that was an experience on its own. It's all of what you make of your opportunity and of your surroundings. And if you go in with the mentality of like, it's going to suck, it's not going to be the best, then chances are it's most likely going to follow that beat. However, if you're going with the mindset of, okay, here's a new opportunity, here are new challenges, let's try and make the most of it, then chances are that you'll find a lot more positive energy being pushed towards you. And so now my family's been in Malaysia for the past 9 years. And it's home for us. And so when people ask me, where's home? I say, I'm Indian. And so I've got a home in Bombay, I've got a home in Delhi, but I do feel very Malaysian in sense because every time I come to KL, it's very natural for me. Even being a year and a half removed from driving, because in Canada they drive on the other side of the road. I've come back here and I've picked up driving immediately. Now, sometimes my dad and I will get into a bit of a yell fest as I'm driving because he thinks he knows best and I think I know best. But yeah, I would have to say that that word anchoring tends to be, for me at least, it's not necessarily a place, but it's people, my friends, my family. And so wherever they move is where my home moves, which is not necessarily, a common thing for many people. Home is a geographical location.
No, I think it happens to all of us. I think, irrespective of the nationality or the culture that we are born into, whether we are at one place for much of our early life, like me in Mumbai city, or for you, in much of Southeast Asia. I think those are the years, isn't it, Jay? At least that's how I look at it. That whilst we are obviously going through a formal school education or a high school education or a university education, one of the things very tacitly and unconsciously all of us do is to figure out our own place in this world, and figure out our own guardrails, if I can use that phrase. And a lot of it does get influenced and shaped, is based on the experience we have with our immediate family, which is necessarily our parents, our siblings, grandparents, if they are living with us. So how has been your experiences in terms of your immediate family? What sort of conversation used to happen, let's say, between you, your brother, your mom, dad, as you moved places in your early life?
I would say, in terms of, I've just 23 this past year. And so now even saying it out loud, it doesn't scare you or shock you, but, it makes you feel like, oh, okay, I was 19 yesterday and now I'm 23. So that thought catches up with you. But in terms of trying to figure out, my place or my direction, to say. I would say that a lot of, like, as you said, the influence comes from your parents. In terms in And what I mean by that is, very early on, I kind of knew what my passions were. I knew what drove me. For me, it was very much, movies, sports, entertainment, and sort of the commonality amongst those three industries is storytelling. And so when I was very young, I understood that that was my passion. And so from my parents to friends, to extended family members, whenever I had an opportunity that would encourage my ability to storytell, they would very much encourage me in that direction. Whether that was being a part of musical theater, being a part of play acting, being a part of a sports team, and then do it inevitably choosing my major in university, which was sports media broadcasting. Anything that sort of, I was very fortunate that I had a very supportive system around me in teachers, friends, family. But I think the best thing that they encouraged was my strengths. My industry isn't sort of, like, I'll put it this way, not many kids from my high school are signing up to go into television broadcasting, specifically sports broadcasting. When they go into their, it's much more general, much more bigger and general talk business, there's medicine, engineering. Sports media in a way is very niche, which brings up, its own benefits and also challenges. But I think the fact that they encouraged me to not necessarily go for the biggest university, but go for the better program, and at the same time not go for, the general degree, because that's what's going to get you a good job, that's what will get you your PR in Canada, but go for a job that encourages you to keep growing. I think that type of advice and that type of support has allowed me to find a better, or is it not find, but has allowed me to walk in a direction with a lot more stability. So in terms of finding my direction, sure, as any young individual, young man, young woman, at this age, everything does seem a bit chaotic. Everything is, when will this job come? When will I start kicking off my career? I think as long as you're very confident in the skills you've developed so far, it helps manage that chaos just a little bit more for yourself so that you can walk with a bit more peace.
So you talked about being drawn not to the idea of the best university, but the best program.
Mm-hmm.
And since you found your calling in the subject of sports media, which
Mm-hmm.
has the element of storytelling, as you said, what was the nature of the specific sports media program that you ended up doing at the RTA school in Canada? And what sort of work did it create for you? What do you do for your living, for example, today?
Yeah, my parents would answer that question by saying video games. That's what they think my living is. But no, so the RTA School of Media is a program, well, basically a department that focuses on, radio broadcasting and and television, and my program specifically focuses obviously on sports media, hence the title of the program. But through that program, I was able to learn sports marketing, sports journalism. So from helping sports team advertise themselves or advertise a sporting product, to reporting on sports, reporting on players, reporting on organizations, and then even going into the production side. Example, if you look at any IPL production, it's a big thing. You've got the commentators at the start of the show, they're telling you the stats of the players, and then there's the cheerleading show, then there's the game itself. All of this runs on a certain time schedule. And so my program looks at not only the theory concepts of sports media, whether it's marketing, advertising, journalism. it also looks at the production side, the much more practical side. And I think, or as a simpler way to say it, is the hands-on side of sports broadcasting. And so we've always been a much more hands-on person. I like picking up projects, working with people, and executing a cohesive goal. And so through that, I have able to pursue my passion of being an on-air sports commentator. I have loved public speaking at an early age. I felt very comfortable in front of the camera, presenting, whether it's on stage as an actor or as a newscaster in my high school and university. It's allowed me to get a professional job in sports commentating, sideline reporting. So I've just done that this past February with the local professional rugby team in Canada, Canada's first professional rugby team. And I was able to make my, TV debut, my national TV debut in Canada, which, not a lot of my colleagues can say they've done. So that is an aspect that my degree has led to. And another aspect is I've been currently working with this company called Dome Productions as part of the implementation team for virtual advertisements in the NHL, which is the National Hockey League. And the NHL is sort of Canada's biggest pastime. Everyone in Canada loves ice hockey. It's a big, big thing. And so that is how my degree leads to a job in sports media, but instead of in front of the camera, behind it. And so I would say the benefit of my degree is that I've learned both the aspects of in front of the camera and behind it. So, as much as I love to pursue my passion of being in front of the camera, there's a certain degree of difficulty with it. Chances are limited. Opportunities aren't given usually to youngsters. It comes with time. Hence, I'm so thankful for the opportunity I had in February. But my degree has taught me how to work behind the camera so that when that opportunity in front of the camera comes, I still have some way of making a living.
So, any recent project of yours which has given you not only a fair bit of high, but also has tested you and challenged you? It would be great if you can walk us through an actual experience of one of your projects, which probably entailed you doing either something in front of the camera or back of the camera, or probably both.
Yeah, absolutely. A big issue for us as university students this past year and a half to 2 years has been the pandemic,
Yes.
which was unfortunate. So opportunities were limited. However, I was very lucky just through sheer persistence of emailing professors, just like, hey, are there any opportunities, as a student? And keep in mind, I was all the way here in Malaysia. So the time difference was 12 hours. So while everyone was awake, I should have been asleep, but I had to stay awake because university was going on. But a professor of mine named Laurel Walzak had mentioned that they had won a professional contract with this team called the Toronto Arrows, which is the first professional rugby team in Canada. So I was able to work with the Toronto Arrows as a content producer, both directing and producing, and also being in front of the camera as a social media host. And so we would do pre and post game shows during their COVID season. And even that, for example, had challenges. We were setting up Wi-Fi connections to 2 different locations, wherever our producer was, wherever I was, and then wherever my co-host was. But the team was playing down in North America. So that presented a whole lot of challenges, which we, navigated and came around. Eventually, we went from a Facebook Live show to Instagram content and Reels. And, this was led into my 4th year when I could finally go back to Canada. And, that contract continued. We helped them with, promotional content, with, a lot of their sponsorships, whether it's their food vendors, whether it's their, executive suites that they have for their fans. We did a lot of that stuff for them, even fan engagement content that we did. So, that was experience that I was able to get just even in university. So as a student itself, working in a professional environment, learning how to deal with people in a professional setting while I'm a student. And then eventually that led on, eventually that contract ended and, that opportunity ended. However, the arrows came back and they said, hey, we worked with you last year and we really liked what you did. We are planning on going in this new direction with this company, and this company would love to also have you on board. Would you like to continue? And I said, absolutely. And, I would say a huge reason for why I was able to get that was because I learned valuable skills in maintaining relationships in a professional environment, showing up on time, sending out emails, being alert, helping out where help is needed. And eventually that led to me sign reporting 6 games. And then on my last game, I had the opportunity to, complete a dream of mine, which was to commentate on a professional sport on national television. And this as a foreigner, as an Indian national coming all the way to Canada to study and then having the opportunity to commentate on one of Canada's most premier television networks for sports. I mean, it's a great opportunity and an opportunity I'll never forget. One of those first moments in my career
What
that
game?
has sort
What
of
game? What
shaped.
game was that? What game was that?
Oh, it was a rugby game. It's the league's called Major League Rugby, and it's a new professional rugby league in North America, trying to promote rugby in time for the next Rugby World Cup, which is coming up soon. That'll be hosted in North America. So professional teams around the US and then the one professional team in Canada. I was able to commentate on that game, and that was such an experience, and received a lot of great feedback from that, mostly positive, which is always encouraging. But yeah, it was an incredible moment, and a moment that sort of kind of encapsulated all the reasons of why I moved to Toronto and moved so far away from home. And yeah, it was just a great moment I'll be able to look back on and say that started everything.
So, and what was the television network you said you commented on?
Yeah, so we were broadcasted on TSN 2 and 4, so that's Ontario, and then whenever we were on TSN 2, that's all of Canada. So it's Toronto Sports Network is the network, and it was a great experience. Met a lot of wonderful people through that experience, and one of my favorite moments of that was I helped these kids. These kids love watching live sports and seeing the athletes, and it's a whole thing. And so when they see the camera, they think, "Oh, I'm going to be on TV." So there were these kids who really wanted to be on
Waving kind of
TV,
stuff,
and yeah, waving, just cheering, and yelling. And one of I think there were 4 kids, and they were their dad brought them. He was asking, he's like, "Hey, do you just mind helping out?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I interviewed them and put them on TV, and they were so happy. And their dad was also like, "Thank you so much for helping out with that." So it was all great. Now, as I'm going back home, getting ready to leave the stadium, these kids are allowed to actually meet the athletes and have their balls signed. They get handed rugby balls to meet the players. So these 4 kids saw me leaving, and they actually ran up to me and they said, "Hey, Jay," like they didn't know my name, but they were like, "Mr. Reporter guy, can we have your autograph?" And for me, I mean, I'm a nobody. So to get that gesture just meant a lot. And, it means a lot to see your work have a positive effect on a group of people, because at the end of the day, as a storyteller, that's what you take pride in. You want your stories to bring joy, to bring a sense of happiness to people viewing or being a part of it themselves. And the fact that they extended such a small gesture like that. Obviously, I'm nowhere as talented as a runner or a tackler as those rugby guys are, but it meant a lot. And I think that's why I really enjoyed that experience. There were a lot of small things I was able to take away from it.
No, beautiful you say this, because I actually visualized you doing this with those 4 kids, and what kind of joy you left with them, and not only with them but with their probably parents who were accompanying them. So here you are as a sports commentator, being broadcasted live on one of Canada's most prominent sports network, the TSN, as you said. which is a pan-Canadian sports network, on an important rugby game. So there is this game happening on the field, which essentially is a story that you as a commentator is picking up and narrating in your own voice live and scripting it live.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the sidelines, you actually are creating your own stories in terms of creating joy with this young kids. So which is so beautiful. But then do you play rugby? Because if you have to comment on that, you got to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest reason why I was handed this opportunity or this job was because of my knowledge of the game. I know a lot of sports very well and to quite a high level. Rugby is a little bit more personal in that aspect, just because I played during high school competitively. I played in university as well. So I would have not been given this opportunity or this job if I didn't know what I was speaking about, And I think that just goes to show, one of the beautiful things about Canada, as I mentioned, I'm an Indian national. I'm not from Canada originally. I'm not from Toronto originally, but I'm a guest in the nation in a way. And the fact that they were able to trust me shows that, for them, it wasn't a matter of, oh, he's Canadian, he's played rugby in Canada. It's more of a sense of, well, he knows what he's talking about. He has experience in that department, so we can trust him with doing so. And I think that's one of the best things about what I can say about Canada is there's inclusion, there's diversity, but there's also giving people a fair chance and an opportunity to prove themselves, which is really great about living in Canada and living in Toronto specifically.
You also said in the earlier part of our conversations about how your parents, much of their conversations in your growing up years has been focusing on your strengths in terms of what you're good at. So if you look back at this specific experience of yours, you narrating or commenting on this rugby game, what of your own strengths, let's say if you can pick 3 or 4 that you got in touch with as a live experience?
Yeah, I would say definitely relationship building. I've always been a people's person. Now, what do I mean by that? Like, obviously, there is the relationship building in the sense of, you have your bosses, you have people who you have to answer to. So dealing in a professional environment, but then also at my craft itself, as a sideline reporter, I have to ask athletes questions. And sometimes when I'm asking them questions, they may not be in the state of to answer or to give a long spiel, or somebody might be a bit more shy than another person. Somebody may be a bit more erratic in their answers. So even that, I have to learn how to manage. I have to learn how to question certain or phrase certain questions. And in that is all relationship building. I build a relationship with that athlete or that person so that they can trust me to open up and give, a much more holistic answer. Another one I would have to say is that I'm a very enthusiastic participant. In any project I'm a part of, whether it's me having a bigger role or me having, a small role as, say, a side team player, or whatever it might be. I bring a level of enthusiasm that I believe is infectious. People are drawn to my energy in the sense that, if I'm motivated, they can say, wow, okay, Jay's giving this much, then I'll give this much. I would say, not that I think I dominate a space or I try and, be the hero all the time, but in the sense that if this is what my project leader demands, I will give him or her that much energy. And I think that works well in a team environment, especially in my industry where it's extremely chaotic, it's extremely hectic, and deadlines are concrete. Like, there's no getting past or asking for extensions. So I think being an enthusiastic team player is very big. Another aspect I would say that is great about me is my ability to be to adapt quickly. As I said, this is an industry where it is fast paced, it is high tempo. So either you sink or you swim. And through this, in fact, I had and this is one of my favorite examples of, adapting quickly. As a sideline reporter, when you're on the sidelines, you have an IFB connected to the main truck, which is sending all the signals to the network at some big office building. So that truck is communicating with me, the commentators. Hey, you have to say this advertisement pitch at this moment in the production. Jay, this player is coming from across the field. You have to interview him. So I was told by my producer, hey, you'll be doing the post-game interview, the post-game show with one of our commentators because the other one has to go for a wedding. So I said, okay, I'll be there. 5 minutes before the game ends, they go and say post-game show canceled. Now, obviously, you double check. You hold your mic clip and you say, hey, just wanted to confirm, is post-game show canceled? So after I did that, I received no word. In that case, usually you take whatever the last message was and you go through with that because you don't want to disturb the audio of the show or whatever it is. Anyway, so I'm getting off my equipment, everything, and I'm heading to the truck just to say bye to everyone. And my producer and director are looking at me with this shocked expression as to say, what are you doing here? They said, what are you doing here? And I said, I heard on the IFB that post-game show was canceled. And they go, no, it's in 30 seconds.
My goodness.
And I was like so shocked. I literally dropped my bags where they were and I bolted. And the post-game show is at the other side of the stadium and it's 5 floors up.
My goodness.
And I have a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, but I think it was more likely a minute to get up there in time. I'm running across past fans. I'm like, hey, get out, get into the elevator. We go up and I'm there waiting and everyone's there waiting. And the stage manager, who's basically the person, whoever's next to the camera, just getting the on-air people ready. He's like, all right, calm down. You got 20 seconds, breathe, collect yourself. But you can tell that I've just run a marathon and I have like sweating. And so 20 seconds and it's live. So there's no recording. Like the pre-game show, you can record. But post-game show, because you're on a time constraint and, this is the hour-and-a-half block that the network has given us. By the end of it, you have to be out because they'll start the new program.
Correct.
So we go live and then I get my piece out as fast as possible. We get through it. We do it professionally. Done. Click. And my commentator next to me, Gareth is his name. I'll never forget what he said. He said, wow, one take wonder. And in our industry, that's a compliment, to be told, hey, that's a one take and you got it done. And that is just a great example of adaptability. You thought you heard something, wasn't the case. Are you just going to let the quality of your show drop because of this? Or are you going to try and scramble as fast as possible to get things done? And that's something I pride myself on, is my ability to adapt in intense moments and moments of pressure. And then the last thing I would say is most likely my ability to be understanding, and more so in the sense of, disappointment. I've come to realize things will not go your way, things will go your way. You, however, can't let your quality of work drop, and nor can you allow that to affect your input into a project.
Fascinating you say this, Jay, and I think hats off to you to have pulled off that run to the other side of the stadium on the 5th level and still holding your breath and doing a 90-minute live show. Hats off to that. But then, when I look back at my own experiences of tense moments, one wishes in those moments that things will at some point in time go right. And with that faith and belief and hope, you keep on taking those steps, saying that you will get it right, or something will fall in place so that everything goes right for you. And then you find that, no, you hit a wall. There's a failure. Okay, you gather yourself, pick up your strengths and start moving again with, again, commitment and belief, hoping that things will fall in place for you. and it fails and breaks again, and it like breaks again and again and again. And I've gone through that experience with one of my startup ventures in tech, 15, 20 years back. I was tested on my resolve that no matter how much of self-belief or conviction I have, things were just not going right. And in the face of certainty, I was seeing and experiencing uncertainty. And I wonder if you've gone through something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in my industry, so like right now, I would say my industry is it's a little bit broad in the sense that obviously I'm pursuing sports media and broadcasting, television, as a commentator, sideline reporter, or even as a producer, director, whatever it might be. But then on the side, I'm also doing acting. I have an agent. I go out for auditions, and even if I want to be a sports commentator, in a way, you sometimes have to audition. And auditions is an endless amount of rejections. There's always going to be rejections, and a great example of rejection that I've had in this past year was actually before my Toronto Arrows rugby, national TV debut. Was before I had auditioned for the role of the in-stadium host of the Blue Jays. So in a lot of North American professional sports, they have an in-stadium host. Like, in cricket, they'll have somebody on the field telling you, okay, this seat has won this prize. So basically that person's role I was going out for, and I was going out for the Toronto Blue Jays, which is Toronto's professional baseball team and is a major league professional team. The MLB is the league they play in Major League Baseball. It's a part of the 5 big leagues in North America: the NHL, MLB, NBA, MLS, and then NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big, big deal. The stadium capacities of, I'm pretty sure 50,000 plus. So this would have been a great chance for big exposure, just to even get some experience on your resume. And, I went, I think they had about, 50 plus people auditioned for this role, not only from my university, from other universities, other programs, even other places across Canada, people who were already working in that line of work. And, I got down to the final 4 of the people that they were going to choose. So that's a lot of people you have to get through. So once I got to the final 4, and every time your hope is building up just a little bit more, every stage you get through, every round that you get through, your hope to get the job and to be that person builds just that much more.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the final 4, and I thought I made, put down a great audition. I thought that, I gave it my best.
Yes.
And in fact, that evening, that whole week leading up to it, it was intense. I was doing so many stuff community-wise for my university clubs, for exams, whatever it was, assignments. That whole week was just extremely intense. And there's parts and moments of you where you're like, why am I even doing this audition? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. But I got down to the final 4 and I didn't end up getting it. And what's like, I built a good relationship with the person who was, they had outsourced the hiring of this job to a company, and I had built a relationship with that director who was helping the team cast the person's role of the in-stadium host. And he said, it came down really close, between you and another person, but we're going to go with this other. They wanted to go with this other person, but
Mm-hmm.
hey, you made a great audition, and hope to see you sometime soon. Again. And that hurt, like you put in so much time and effort into an audition, and it didn't go your way, and you're questioning and asking yourself, well, am I cut out for this? Because I know this is a passion of mine, and I know I love it deeply, and I know that it's something I would love to do for the rest of my life, being on camera, being in front of the TV, whatever it may be, but public speaking in general.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get it, you build a lot of negativity, you build a lot of self-criticism, you build, a lot of doubt, and it was tough for a few weeks. However, my mentality has always been, now keep in mind, I mean, even then I had this mentality, but as you said, like, because it keeps on getting the rejection keeps on happening. How are you supposed to keep your will, and how are you supposed to keep your
Correct.
faith, and keep keep that consistency? Eventually, I just realized that, what? Fine, I didn't get the job, but here's some questions to ask. Is in stadium hosting exactly what I want to do? No, not necessarily. Was that role the best fit for me? Yeah, maybe not. I don't really have much of a creative say in what I want to say and what I want to tell, the stories I want to tell. It's very much more promotion, selling than it is storytelling. And this is the biggest part, which people sometimes I think don't give enough attention to when they face rejection. How much did I accomplish to the point of rejection? I was going from next stage to next stage to next stage. So that meant I was only getting better in their
Yes.
stages of approval for who would get the job.
Yes.
And I was doing other things. So sure, maybe I didn't get it, but looking back, I should be so happy that I got that far and that I was able to get that far. And as that too, as a university graduate, the person who I lost the job to was significantly older than me and who
Mm-hmm.
has already had experience in that role.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I mean, once again, it sucks. It's never fun to face rejection. But when you put things into when you take things into consideration and you put things into perspective, not aspects, but perspective, there is a way to bounce back from rejection.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I didn't get it, but I accomplished this much. I realized that maybe that I wasn't the best fit for them. And as much as I would have loved the pay, I would have loved the exposure, it's about building, a relationship that works for the both of you. And I don't think it would have worked out for us. Now, obviously, in the moment, if you're telling me all of this, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to think of it. I'm just so down.
I will just say, Jay, take a walk. I
Yeah,
am
exactly.
I am in a mess. Things are still not working for you. But you're
Exactly.
absolutely right. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, though in the moment, you actually hate sentences like, which is what
Yeah.
happened. Which is what happened to me, Jay. That there were a lot of people who
Yeah.
used to tell me that whenever I used to encounter failure, they would say that, listen, what are the lessons this failure has given you? I would say, go jump off the
Yeah.
window. Don't talk to me.
Genuinely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then of course you got to let the moment pass, and then of course sanity returns and so on and so forth. But one of the realities of the world that we live in today, Jay, and probably you being a wannabe migrant into a very migration friendly country like Canada, is that of being felt included in the society.
Yeah.
One of the significant social phenomena that, of course, which interests me, and it's a subject of study for me, is social inclusion, because it's not just cross-country migration. It's within the country itself. You move from one region to the other. People from smaller towns move to bigger towns and bigger cities, and everybody wants to fit in. And the fit in is a two-way street, isn't it? I mean, I do my best, but the other side also has to be equally welcoming and receiving. And you are in this melting pot, not only Canada, but a city called Toronto, where just about everybody in the world is coming together. I wonder, in that case, what does it then mean to be felt included in a multicultural, multiracial, multilingual society, in terms of a personal experience that you have had?
Yeah. No, I would say, and I've talked to you about this, Uncle. It's very nuanced. There's many shades of gray to understanding social integration amongst communities and different ethnic backgrounds and everything like this. There's many shades of gray, and it's never simple and it's never easy to understand. All said and done, Canada is very inclusive. Toronto as a city is very diverse. However, does that mean that racism doesn't exist? Not at all. It's there. But then at the same time, racism's here in Asia.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
racism exists everywhere. Ignorance exists everywhere. But you're absolutely right, right? It's a two-way street of I should be confident and emboldened enough based by my surroundings to meet new people, to explore new ideas, while the other party needs to be as welcoming. What I would say to that is, and I can even give an experience off of this, is one, don't expect people to be so welcoming at the start, because in any sort of life, any industry, whatever it is, whatever the situation might be, anything that is foreign to us, at least what I've been able to learn, presents a sense of threat just because we don't understand it.
Correct.
And it's natural to fear what we don't understand. That's not to say that there's necessarily malicious intention behind that person or that that situation, but whatever we don't understand, we will naturally step away from.
Correct.
So whenever I've moved to a different country, whenever I've joined something new, I've always said the best thing I can do to provide myself with the best opportunity to meet people, to make new friends, to garner momentum that opportunities present themselves to myself, is being confident in who I am. And that comes from falling back on the ideals and values. And as we spoke earlier on in this discussion, the experiences that have shaped me. Those ideals, values, experiences that have shaped me provide me the confidence and the boldness to go and say, hey, let's go catch a drink. Hey, let's go watch this show. Let's go do this activity with people who I may have necessarily never have interacted with before.
Has it happened before? Has it
I
happened to you?
sure.
Any incidents you can pick quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a great experience. I have this. You have to understand, when you go to Canada, when you go to the US, Canadians are not only Toronto. Canadians are not only Vancouver. There's Alberta, there's Saskatchewan. There are many. There's a range to Canadian people, like as there is a range in India. People from the south are different than people in the west or the north, and so there's a range. And one of my great friends, Calvin Everett's, he's a little bit very conservative, very traditional chap. But honestly, a great individual and a great guy. And he has a nickname for me. He calls me Dubai Prince. Now, obviously, I'm not from Dubai, and nor have I lived in Dubai. But he makes it as a little joke, and but there is genuine curiosity behind his questions. He's always asked me about Malaysia, what's it like living in Malaysia, what's it like being from India, and I've always said, if you ever want to come, my mom would be more than happy to have us, and she'd be happy to have us. And he's like, man, I'm going to take you up on that deal, just let me get a job to pay for my ticket first. But we come from two very different walks of life. And I was meeting one of his friends, and he even told me, he's like, you're about to meet one of my friends, and the best way to describe him is, he's not meant for the university campus groups of people. So obviously referring to the fact that, he's got his own views, he's got his own life outlook, but it may not be very, politically correct to say. So I said, yeah, don't worry, man, let's meet him, let's catch a drink with him, and let me make my opinion of him. So obviously I can tell, we come from two very different worlds. I come from Asia, he comes from a much more rural part of Canada, predominantly more white, not much diversity, so to say, in his neck of the woods. But there at no moment was, any assumptions about me, or did I have any assumptions about him? And if he did have assumptions, he was very quick to ask, but correct me if I'm wrong, tell me, I would like to know what the story is from someone who's actually there, which in my opinion shows the best part is curiosity. It's better to be curious than judgmental. And him doing that is enough of an invitation, as you said, being welcoming, for me to feel confident in who I am and tell him, hey, so yeah, this is what Malaysia is like. This is what growing up in Thailand was like. This is what being from Bombay is like, from Delhi. And we were able to have drinks. We were able to bond over our love for Oasis, our favorite band, music, whatever it was. But this is, just a great example of people from two very different walks of life who are able to find, commonality in something. Now, sure, maybe, we share a difference in political opinion or whatever it might be, but does that have to overcrowd the topic of conversation? Does that have to, dictate our discussion? Not at all. And, what I think, like I said, moving from country to country to country, the best way to make friends, the best way to make the most of the opportunity in your hand is to be curious and not judgmental. Because I think the minute you create assumptions, the minute you form judgments, is the minute you limit yourself to explore. I think being naturally curious allows you to take steps that you wouldn't naturally take. And if you decide you don't like it, then fine, but you don't have to let it bother you. But you can say at least, hey, I gave it a go and I learned from it. And I think that's what I took away from that. Curiosity is very important, because it'll drive you to places that you never thought you could have gone.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think, you couldn't have articulated it any better than saying be curious and not judgmental, because I think the world that we live in, increasingly, for reasons good or bad, is becoming more and more polarized. People are taking extreme positions. They're not wanting to listen to each other. That's the kind of world we are getting into. They call it the post-truth world, or whatever. We don't know whatever be the labels, but I guess the message I hear from you, Jay, an Indian who was born in Thailand, grew up in Philippines, in Malaysia, Australia, now living in Canada, a 21st century global citizen is an image I'm getting, who is saying, be curious and not judgmental. Listen to understand and listen not to judge. I guess that will at least ensure that we all coexist peacefully and friendly, and create a world which is more harmonious than probably what it is becoming. So what a beautiful note of hope and promise you are leaving with us. Thank you so much, Jai. I think this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation for me. How has been this experience for you?
No, absolutely. I've enjoyed it. It's been great for me. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Wings podcast for having me on. And if I had, I like what the Wings podcast is about, because there are many Indians, whether you're an NRI or whether you're an Indian coming straight from India to Toronto or the US, it's daunting. It's intimidating. It sucks being so far away from home. And having to eat Indian food in Canada and call it Indian food is terrible, because we know that it's not good Indian food. Yeah. Nothing beats food from home. But I think this podcast, this platform, and what you are doing, and what the Wings podcast is doing, provides us with the ability to understand that it can be better and that there are ways to make it better. And so, yeah, I'm just glad that I was able to add to this experience and to this journey that you guys are creating. And thank you so much for having me and being able to express myself.
Pleasure and joy is equally ours, Jai. So look forward to meeting you sometime soon, whenever you are next in India, or I don't know, wherever our paths cross.
Absolutely. Hopefully we'll have much more discussions about either my driving or learning how to be an adult, learning how to cook and wash clothes. But yes, I absolutely would love nothing more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Wish you good luck. Take care and stay safe. Thank you for your time today, my dear listeners. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri, signing off. Goodbye, take care, and stay safe. This podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as a piece of any professional advice. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of its guest. Creators of this podcast expressly disclaim any and all liability or responsibility for any direct or indirect, consequential or other damages arising out of any individual's use of this podcast. For feedback and suggestions, please write to wingsindia75@gmail.com. Thank you.